All right. So in the last video, we saw what the good life is according to Epicurus, right? The good life is one of pleasure, but not just any pleasure. It's mental and fully satisfiable pleasure. And it's a life where we care for the body, but we take our needs down to a minimum. And we take our needs to a minimum because we want them to be as easy to satisfy as possible, right? If you need bread every day, that's way easier to satisfy than eating steak and lobster every day. And you should do that with all of your desires. Okay. Now we need to see why we shouldn't fear death. So now we have the two primary components that we need to explain why we shouldn't fear death. First, you have the atomism, and second, you have this idea that pleasure is the only valuable thing. Okay. Think about that. Why would that mean you shouldn't fear death? Well, if you put these two together, right, first, atomism implies that there's no soul or afterlife. Right? If all there are in the universe are just atoms floating around within a void, then there is no immaterial stuff in the first place, right? There's only the material. There's only the atoms. And so there are no souls floating around the void with the atoms. There's no souls in an atom that like jumps from one to one, or there's not a soul atom that when it combines with a bunch of other atoms gives you a human body with the soul. No, there just is no soul. There's only the atoms. So atomism implies that there's no soul or afterlife. So when you die, right, when your body dies, that's just the annihilation of the person. There's nothing after that moment for you to experience. And the second key component is that the only bad thing for a human to experience is pain. Remember when we were talking about the good life, right? The fundamental value is pleasure, and so your life is all about chasing down pleasure and avoiding pain. Pain is the only bad thing that a human can experience. Well, now hopefully you see very quickly that although the act of dying may be painful, yeah, your heart attack or your cancer or your accident, right, all of those things are truly going to be painful, and so you should fear those, but you shouldn't fear death. Death is the annihilation of the person. If you're annihilated, there's no experience left for you to have. So in death, you will not experience pain. In other words, there's no experience of anything bad for you to have in death. Right? So you shouldn't fear it. You should only fear death if you could experience pain while you were dead. But that's impossible for an atomist. Your soul's not going to go to hell and be tortured or something like that. Your soul's not going to be sitting in the void, sort of alone and afraid. There is no soul. There is no afterlife. It's just the annihilation of you, the end of all experience. So if that's true, right, if atomism and his pleasure principle is true, then the fear of death is actually very irrational for everybody to have, because you want to have your life go as pleasantly as possible. And if you're fearing death, that's just an irrational thing to fear that's bringing you pain. So it's not even a pain that you should be worried about slightly, right? It's something completely irrational for you to worry about. You're bringing yourself pain for no reason whatsoever. So if you want to live the peaceful, pleasant life, you should realize that fearing death is irrational, because in death you won't experience any pain. You won't experience anything bad for you because you won't experience. Okay. So hopefully you see now how Epicurus is a perfect example of this theme of tranquility that's running through the Hellenistic philosophers, right? By taking a fundamental philosophical theory, like Epicurus did with atomism, and then seeing what that implies for the ethical life or the good life, we can eliminate sources of fear in our mind, right? And lead a more tranquil or peaceful mental life. So Epicurus has been our great example of this, and that is it for the week. As you're reading through the textbook, make sure you're looking for this theme throughout both of the other theories of both Stoicism and skepticism, because all of the Hellenistic philosophers are describing philosophical views which they think will lead to this mental tranquility. All right, thank you, everyone.